Greetings, how is everybody? So I'm here today with a special guest to talk about Star Trek. This is heavy spoilers. If you haven't seen the movie yet, you might want to stay away from this video. So I'm here today with Chris Stuckmann. How are you?
Not bad. How are you doing? I apologize for the internet connection that is, not good. But I'm here to talk about Star Trek Into Darkness, and it doesn't really matter. My voice is here, John is here, we're here, let's talk.
I got a Star Trek shirt, that's what counts. So anyway, this is the sequel to the 2009 Star Trek movie, which, by the way, before watching that movie, like 4 years ago, I wasn't really that huge on Star Trek. Like, I've seen some of the movies, like, in the early 90s, but I kind of lost sight of Star Trek, and that movie kind of re-energized me into the whole franchise.
Same with me, yeah. Because I grew up watching the movies and everything. I watched, like, the original 6, and I watched the Next Generation movies, and I watched the Next Generation show and the original series, but none of the other shows. But, like, it had gone to kind of obscurity. It wasn't like it ended and it just was horrible all of a sudden. It just kind of just faded out, and there wasn't anything for a while, and it definitely needed some fresh juice in there. And,
a little bit of lens flare from Abrams. Yeah, the thing about the original TV series that scared me, not the original, but the one that we got in the 90s, Data scared the living hell out of me. I had nightmares about that, man.
Yeah, we're recording this video currently with a toaster.
Exactly, and a potato. So anyway, let's jump into Star Trek Into Darkness. Let's talk about this movie kind of compared to the first movie. To me, this movie, I thought it moved a lot faster. I mean, not to say the first movie didn't move extremely fast, but this one there was never a dull moment, and there was never a moment where we were like, this is stupid, or it doesn't make sense. Everything just kept moving in this movie, and the plot was a little less convoluted than the first movie.
The first time I saw Star Trek '09, I enjoyed it. It actually took a few viewings for me to actually really love that movie. I don't know what it was.
I had the same thing. It took me until I got it on Blu-ray to fall in love with it.
That's funny, because it was the same for me. But then I was just like, man, this is a really good movie. And I think the first time I saw it, I was just expecting something different, and then it was just so good. The second one it had that same, like, quick, like, everything was just so fast. But it also, like you said in your review, it didn't hold away from, like, showing emotion too. Like, it wasn't just nonstop science fiction action. It had, like, a lot of really great emotional scenes in there that I was really surprised by.
It wasn't Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen. I mean, all the action in this movie. Yeah, did you notice big action scenes in this movie? But in every action scene, there was, like, it stopped and there was an emotional moment. Every single scene had that. Yeah,
it was great. I mean, the connections between characters is what made the original Star Trek show famous. Beyond the whole hokiness of it, it had, like, good characters you could actually care about.
Now, let me ask you this. If we went into space, it was 200 years into the future, would I be Spock and would you be Kirk, or would it be the other? I think you'd be more of the Spock. I honestly see that. I see more like the asshole who would just say the one-liner.
Yeah, you're completely right. I'd be the guy who's like quoting all of the regulations. Regulation number 52719 says that you may not use the bathroom.
But Chris, there's something over there we have to go see. Okay, that's enough of Shatner. Let's jump into more about this movie. Now, judging by the trailers and everything that was promotional for this movie, I was excited to see it, but something about what they were showing us, I wasn't as amped as I wanted to be. And I think that really paid off, because they were only showing us, like, Earth destruction scenes. They weren't showing us all the epic space battles in the trailers for this movie.
Yeah, they did such a good job. I love that about J.J. Abrams. He is one of, like, the few filmmakers remaining today who's like, look,
and keep a secret.
I want the audience to experience the movie without knowing things, and I love that about it.
I call him Cumberbatch in my review, but Cumberbatch, either one you want to call him. Call him
how you say it.
Call him Sherlock Holmes. We don't care. Either way, everyone kind of assumed that was going to be Khan, but no one officially said it was going to be, which was kind of like a nice touch. And you still had a little bit of doubt in your mind.
My name is Khan. By the way, really quick, did people clap in your theater there?
People went, ooh, when he said, ooh.
One guy was like, yeah.
I wanted to talk about, this movie's essentially sort of a remake, a reimagining of Wrath of Khan, which we got in the 1980s.
I mean, portions of it were definite tributes. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't really say, like, like the whole ending where Spock, it was all reversed.
Everything was switched around, yeah.
Right. Spock realizes Kirk is gone. he's gone into the radiation area where you can't go in, and then Spock goes,
Oh.
but it wasn't like a complete stealing of it. It was just like a loving tribute, kind of.
Yeah, the thing about JJ, and we both agree on this, is that guy, he's a director for the fanboys. And that's the thing I like about his movies. Even though he gives you what you want, he keeps surprising you. I wanted to talk a little bit more about Khan, though. A lot of people sort of prefer the original 1980s Khan, because I guess he has like dialogue, kind of, he almost has like a Shakespearean kind of way of putting things in the original movie.
I stab at thee. Yeah.
But either way, I like the interpretation that we got with this Khan. I very menacing, a genetically engineered warrior to kick some ass. Okay, let's go into warp speed. Let's talk about this plot. I've said warp speed 17 times this week, and I'm kind of proud of myself. Anyway, let's talk about the opening scene of this movie. The Enterprise is on some humanitarian mission. They left off where the last movie promised they would go, which I was happy with. I didn't want them like sitting around on Earth in the opening scene. I was glad they were out in space. You didn't know where it was kind of going when they opened up, when they were on the volcano?
Okay, no, it wasn't the volcano part of it. Like I understood that was a big opening action scene, and that totally fit into the rest of the movie. Eventually, like you got the whole thing of Spock. Kirk was like, saving Spock.
The whole conflict.
Spock didn't understand what was going on, and eventually, towards the end of the movie, he was able to figure that out. You know what I mean? But like the part that I didn't quite, I was like, what's going on? When they showed that one family with the young daughter. And the whole sequence with that, I was like, what is this?
Oh, okay,
then, like, as soon as it ended, I was like, oh, he's the guy that Khan helped, and now he's going to explode that city because Khan helped him and everything. I was like, okay, that makes sense. I honestly couldn't really think of many issues with the movie aside the fact that like, while I was watching that in the moment, I was like, what is this all about?
Khan basically saves this guy's daughter, and in return he ends up doing a suicide bombing on the archive of Starfleet. Anyway, the scene after that, essentially, where we pick up with the crew, is they're on some foreign planet. Spock has to save the civilization from a volcano erupting. And that scene where Spock was basically like, I don't care, I'm going to do this for the good of humanity. I'm going to sacrifice myself. And he's standing there just accepting it. I thought that scene where he's accepting his fate was stronger than the ending scene in the movie where Kirk accepts his.
Really?
It felt like it was paced out better.
Okay.
Yeah, because remember, they were cutting from him in the volcano to the Enterprise, and they were cutting to Zoe Saldana's character, who, was really emotional at the time. I just thought it was it took its time a little bit more.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. I thought that the one near the end where Kirk was, sacrificing himself, I was definitely really into that. Because I knew at the beginning, I knew Spock wasn't going to die. It's the first scene in the movie.
Yeah, exactly. And once again, going back to the original films, like switching everything up. In the original one, Spock actually does die, and they have to go find him in the next movie. In this one, Kirk dies, but then he's resurrected 6 minutes later. Which, if I had to pick one issue, that was the only one I had with this movie, is they just rushed the last 20 minutes of this movie just a little bit.
Here's the thing, like, this movie is so fast. This is a movie that, like, you really need to see it again so you can, like, feel the flow of it. Yeah. Because, like, everything happens so fast, and towards the end I was like, is there another big scene? Yeah. Is there going to be another big one? Oh, okay, it's ending now. It was just so fast, like, the whole movie. But I know that when you watch it over again, it'll feel more...
sink in, yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, it's just such a fast-paced movie that everything happens so quickly, and... but I gotta say, that ending sequence where Spock is chasing Khan, and you get those wonderful side panning shots that were like perfectly aligned with the actors as they ran, and then that whole sequence, I was just in my adrenaline. I was so pumped. I was like, Spock,
kick his ass.
To kick Khan's ass.
Yeah, just kick his ass. Because Spock, the thing I love about Spock in these films that JJ does so well is he interweaves his Vulcan side and his human side very well, and he really plays them both out. In this movie, when Spock gets human, that's when I really root for him. Like, I love all his cold-hearted one-liners about, this, he breaks down everything with a factoid or something. That goes against Regulation 125 that states in the Starfleet handbook that you can't, take a shit without wiping your ass 3 times. But when he was kicking Khan's ass, I was like, yes. And then Zoe Saldana's over there. She shot him 18 times with a phaser laser.
Yeah, and then of course you got that fan like jizz-worthy moment where he Vulcan death grips him and Khan's like,
Okay, let's talk about something we haven't gotten any other J.J. Abrams movie that they almost did in the last movie, but they cut it out. It was like a deleted scene. In this movie, fanboys can kind of get a little bit of what they wanted. We go to the Klingon home planet in this movie, and you know they have like a 10-minute little segment.
Cool, because they're kind of like classic Star Trek villains. And you know the whole
Didn't they look like predators in this movie? Didn't they walk like the Predator?
They're like son of a bitch.
That's sad we both do it at the same time. I liked how they talked about them throughout the movie a little bit. Peter Weller's character, who plays an admiral of Starfleet, you know, he talks about that there's a war and it's going to happen eventually no matter what with the Klingons. So it was kind of nice to see that there was a little bit more than just some random 10-minute scene that, you know, Starfleet was aware of them.
Yeah, I was also thinking that they may like wrap that into the third movie also, the Klingons.
Now, speaking of Peter Weller, in this movie, he cruises around in the spaceship, the Vengeance, which is like a badass version of the Enterprise, but 10 times bigger.
Abrams filmed that so well, like the space gas and everything around all the ships, and you really got that sense that ship was just so much larger than the Enterprise, and how basically it could just the Enterprise
crush it, yeah.
Yeah, and I really like that.
Yeah,
I like Peter Weller also. He did a pretty good job as this evil guy, which is interesting because I guess all I really know him by is RoboCop, the very stoic robotic hero. So it's kind of interesting to see him be like the bastard.
The name's Murphy, scumbag. Now the thing about J.J. Abrams movies are they're very intense. They're very, you feel like you're in the action in his movies. Shaky cam, lens flare. But when this guy wants to have an emotional scene, and I mentioned this once before, he locks the camera down. He lets you soak that emotional scene in, and that's what I like about him compared to like a Michael Bay where it's just zooming across the place and Megan Fox is back there screaming.
Yeah, but even his shaky cam, it looks good. Like it's not shaky cam. It's not shaky cam to hide poor stunt work, or shaky cam to hide the fact that you don't know what to do with the camera. Like he knows when to use it correctly, and I wouldn't even describe it as shaky cam.
Artistic moving of the camera.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even describe it. To me, shaky cam is just like
Pretty much covered everything. Just a few things we'll jump back into. Alice Eve's in this movie. If you guys,
woman.
Yeah, if you guys want to see more of her, look up the movie Crossing Over. By the way, yeah, Ray Liotta takes advantage of her.
Write that down.
Write it down, get ready, and Google search. Anyway, in this movie, she plays Peter Weller's character, the Admiral's daughter, which it's kind of like a twist in the movie. You don't find out till halfway in the movie once the Vengeance is about to blow the hell out of the Enterprise. So let's jump into this movie. Essentially, we think Kirk dies. He's resurrected with some of the blood that was genetically altered for the whole genetic warrior of Khan thing.
Which, by the way, was... And he saw the Tribble. If you don't remember the classic episode of Star Trek, The Trouble with Tribbles, you won't understand that.
Oh, the little thing on the desk, yes. With Dr. McCoy. My God, man. By the way, Karl, everybody in this movie had their moment, man. That's what I loved about the script. Everybody was paced out, and you got to know everybody without feeling rushed or leaving anybody out. Okay, due to technical difficulties and Skype hating Chris, I'm gonna give you his quick summary, and then I'll wrap it up. So, Chris, what is your final thoughts on Star Trek Into Darkness?
Well, Star Trek Into Darkness is one of my favorite movies of the year. I think it is the perfect summer action movie. I think that it is exactly what I needed to see in regards to the time when it came out. It was just a great way to start the summer. It combined a great amount of emotional depth along with the action. It stayed true to the original characters and attributed things in really awesome ways. And it was just a lot of fun. And Abrams continued to impress me as a visual director. The writing was very clever. The back and forth between the characters was excellent. And I loved it. I loved everything about it.
All right, man. I agree with everything you said. And anyway, guys, this is Chris Stuckmann. Link to his channel down below. If you haven't already, subscribe. Thank you for your input, and Chris, live long and prosper. So guys, let me know your thoughts on this movie down below. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Was it exactly what you wanted? Also, I'm curious to know, are you guys excited for J.J. Abrams directing the upcoming Star Wars movie? Because watching Star Trek Into Darkness, I was like, yeah, I think that guy's that's perfect. That's exactly what I want Star Wars to be like. It's a perfect blend of having fun and adventure, but at the same time, it can be serious when it needs to. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Oh, hey, you're still here. By the way, a lot of people were asking me. I put up a Facebook post a few days ago when I went to the Star Trek Into Darkness sneak peek, and I showed a picture, this picture right here. There was some guy behind me, some skinny, weird guy. He looked like a villain in some kind of weird sci-fi movie, and he was putting these little fluorescent glow lights across 3 seats, and then he stood up with a folding chair in his hand for 20 minutes before the movie started, and he had a pocket knife in his other hand, and he kept looking at the 3 seats. It was bizarre. I thought it was going to be a very bad night. Anyway, it turned out he was just saving the seats for a couple friends, and he wasn't a psychopathic serial killer.